You're watching Camnet News. Thank you so much for choosing us. My name is Sharon Kalimbula. The top stories on our desk this evening: the Patriotic Front claims most Zambians feel shortchanged in the UPND one-year rule. Timber producers complain over government stance on exports. Non-state actors ask for more time on the Public Order Act submissions. In international news, William Ruto is Kenya's president-elect. And in sports news, Zambia women's national netball team intensifies preparations for World Cup qualifiers.
It's census time. The 2022 Census of Population and Housing will be conducted from 18th August to 14th September 2022. The census collects a lot of data for use in various aspects of social and economic planning for the country. We are all required to participate in the census by being counted. You will be counted from your usual dwelling place by a census enumerator. Please receive and cooperate with the census enumerator and provide the required information when you will be visited. Your responses to the census questions will be treated with strict confidentiality and will be used for statistical purposes only.
Hi, I'm coming to count you.
Because everyone counts.
This message is brought to you by the Zambia Statistics Agency with support from the UNFPA.
Once again, thank you for choosing us. The news in detail. The Timber Association of Zambia is disappointed at government's stance towards timber product exports countrywide. In an interview with Camnet News, Association President Charles Masange has cited Sino-Africa Company Limited as one of its members, a company that has unfairly been treated for attempting to export timber products despite meeting the requirements. Mr. Masange notes that Sino-Africa trucks have been unlawfully detained in 3 districts, making the company incur losses of over 50 million United States dollars.
These trucks, loaded with semi-finished mokula belonging to Sino-African timber, was destined for China from Mansa in Northern Province. A journey that was only to take 2 days to reach the Nakonde border has now taken over 40 days after they were impounded by police officers at Luwingu police station in Northern Province, where they were made to stay for more than 30 days without being told the reason why the trucks were impounded. According to the company, the trucks had all the import permits cleared by the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, the Zambia Forestry Department, the Zambia Agriculture Research Institute, and others. And Timber Producers Association of Zambia has expressed disappointment in the manner in which authorities in the country are treating exporters of timber products who they say have been refusing to bribe them.
In this situation, we can learn a lot because as Timber Producers of Zambia, we told our members Sino-Africa not to give corruption to any civil servants so that we clean the sector and we observe what happens. And Sino-Africa never corrupted anybody from Mansa. Hence, the delay of our exports to 50 days. And this has caused the company to spend more than $50,000 going to over 1 million kwacha in terms of demurrages.
After having spent more than 30 days at Luwingu police station, these trucks were later released, but have also been delayed by customs officers at Nakonde border post, which has now resulted in the company losing more than 50,000 United States dollars in revenue. Mr. Masange now wants the president and other relevant authorities to investigate why officials in the country are blocking timber and mukula traders.
Of course, they started by 6 containers which were supposed to leave. 2 containers after leaving, one was impounded in Mbala, according to the report we received by an army officer. The other truck was impounded in Luwingu by the police. If you look at these people who are impounding the trucks, they are not forest officers. They are nowhere in Statute number 50 of the Forest Act. Why should we allow civil servants who are not there to execute the act be interfering in our business? I'm appealing to the government, I'm appealing to the president, I'm appealing to the secretary to cabinet and the commissioner the chairman, and corruption to investigate this matter so that we prevent corruption in the civil service.
For now, the waiting continues for these truck drivers who have been away from their families for over 40 days. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The Agriculture Technical and Professional Staff Union of Zambia has bemoaned the poor state of most houses occupied by agriculture extension officers in the country. In an interview with Camnet TV, Association Union President Oniva Chingobe therefore notes that the call by government that all extension officers under the Ministry of Agriculture report back to their respective camps is a welcome move, but that government should consider constructing decent accommodation for the officers. Mr. Chingobe says some districts have no houses to accommodate extension officers, which has resulted in most of them running away from their stations. Prudence Chota once again filed this report.
The state of most housing units in rural areas leaves much to be desired, as it is said to be one of the contributing factors as to why most civil servants sent in rural areas fail to deliver. These are houses belonging to some agriculture extension officers jotted across the country. Families occupying these houses are living in constant fear of losing their lives as the houses are in a dilapidated state. While government through the Ministry of Agriculture has directed that all extension officers under the Ministry of Agriculture should revert back to their respective camps within 5 days, the Agriculture Technical and Professional Staff Union of Zambia has welcomed the move, but says the government should look into the poor housing conditions of most officers, which has been forcing them to run out of the camps.
It's a very good move. It's a welcome move to us as a union. Because that is the only way we can have effective extension delivery. But I wish to make this clear that most of these officers who are not staying in their camps is as a result of accommodation challenges. You know, the government houses that are in the camps in rural areas, they are far much deplorable. They are not in a state that somebody can stay there.
The union president adds that his association will not allow a situation where their members are subjected to sleeping outside, which he says is riskier to their lives. He has since appealed to the government to give officers more time to look for decent houses, and says once the census exercise is done, government should also consider giving motorbikes to the extension officers.
My appeal is to say the 5 days given to the officers to find accommodation or else they'll face disciplinary charges. I think we are appealing to the ministry to say, please, I think may you have patience to the officers. Let them find decent accommodation. Also think about how are they going to execute their duties effectively. And this now comes to the issues of transport. You know, the camps are already vast, and then we take the officer there without transport. How is it going to deliver, or how is it going to work effectively? So I think this brings me to appeal. You know, I've seen a good number of motorbikes and gadgets with the ZAMSTAT, which are going to be used for this 2022 census. I think may I appeal that those motorbikes, those gadgets, after this exercise, be handed to the extension officers.
Good housing helps people stay healthy and provides a base from which to sustain a job, contributing to the community and achieve a decent quality of life. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Opposition Patriotic Front has described the United Party for National Development Administration's one-year rule in office as an economic disaster. PF Media Director Antonio Mwanza has cited high prices of commodities, which he says have subsequently pushed the cost of living beyond the reach of many vulnerable citizens. Mr. Mwanza says most Zambians, especially young people, feel short-changed on account of lack of jobs and economic hardships being experienced. However, the UPND has been praising itself for having delivered to people's expectations, citing the free education policy, increased constituency development fund and disbursement, as well as the recruitment of teachers and health personnel.
To mark the 1 year in office, the governing United Party for National Development, UPND, has been holding a series of activities to brag about its achievements in office. Most UPND officials have been pointing out the increased Constituency Development Fund CDF allocation from 1.6 to 25.7 million kwacha, the recruitment of over 30,000 teachers, and 11,000 health personnel, the rule of law, as well as combating cadarism.
By dialogue, by reconciling, by sitting down and solve this problem. I think so far we have done well as a party.
TV stations, social media platform, the feedback is overwhelming. The response from the public is overwhelming. And it gives us morale and hope and also encouragement that our government is on the right course. Look at our uncle Chishimba Kamwil. Hanis has been picked as a nurse. That is the type of government the people of Zambia wanted. And we all know that President Hakainde wants to unite this country. And our friends from the opposition, they are still saying no, he's lying.
While the UPND is pointing, the Opposition Patriotic Front is discrediting, and it has described the UPND's 1 year in office as an economic disaster. PF Media Director Antonio Mwanza has told Camnet TV News that most Zambians feel shortchanged owing to the prevailing high cost of living, which he says the UPND promised to address upon being ushered into office.
Life in general has become extremely expensive and difficult for the people of Zambia. They are spending more on everything, be it food, be it transport, be it hospital bills, be it anything, whether it's fertilizer, all the prices of these things have gone up. To the young people, they feel shortchanged. They had a lot of hope that this government will create business opportunities for them. They were told, go to your constituencies and get the CDF. The young people are not seeing that CDF. They have made cooperatives, they can't access the CDF. You saw the thousands of young people that were queuing up for the jobs for census. Now they are protesting that even people that did not sit for those exams are the ones that have been given jobs. That people who were at home, who did not even come for interviews, are the ones that have been given jobs. So there are no jobs for the young people. There are no business opportunities for the young people. And they really feel shortchanged.
And Mr. Mwanza has implored the UPND to stop praising itself, but use the first anniversary on the wheels of power to reflect on some failed promises.
Everybody feels shortchanged. They believe that today they will be buying minimum at 50 kwacha. They believe today they will be having fertilizer for 250 kwacha. They believe today they will have fuel for 12 kwacha. There is no such thing. Life has become more difficult, and our hope and prayer to the UPND government is that they will use this time to reflect on their failed promises and to see how best they can help the Zambian people going forward. They shouldn't use this moment to praise themselves, to brag. No, they should use this moment to look at the promises they made and have a genuine comparison of how they have fared, promise by promise, what they promised and what they have delivered. And then they can reflect and change.
They say democracy is about opinions and freedom of expression. In the Zambian context, this means the views of the 1.8 equivalently matter as those of a 2.8 in order to achieve good governance. Patrick Soko, Camnet News in Lusaka.
The Southern African Center for Constructive Resolution of Disputes, SACOD, has called for an extension date to which stakeholders can make submissions to the Zambia Law Development Commission on the revision of the Public Order Act against the deadline, which falls on Monday, 15th August 2022. Speaking to Camnet News after a stakeholders consultative meeting on the above subject, Mr. Chembe says having gone around the country to hear consultations from stakeholders, it remains clear that many submissions remain to be made. Meanwhile, stakeholders present during the Monday meeting, among them the media, says notifications to the police should be circumstantial depending on the urgency of the activity.
Zambia is a participatory democracy, which means that stakeholders are engaged before major reforms as one way of ensuring that no sector of society is left out. This has been the case on reforms surrounding the Public Order Act, where stakeholders have been making submissions to the Zambia Law Development Commission following the political will shown by the current administration for this law to be revised. Many stakeholders feel that the Public Order Act has been used by various political parties in office to curtail political freedoms of their opponents as one way of maintaining power hence the reforms surrounding the Act. With the deadline for the submissions coming to an end Monday, 15th August 2022, Southern African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Disputes SACWAD Executive Director Boniface Chembe has called for an extension of the date, stating that not enough awareness was raised that submissions were going on. He has further called for consultation surrounding the constitutional review process to be expedited, stating that these may be politicized as the country draws near to the 2026 general elections. Mr. Chembe was speaking to Camnet News after a stakeholders consultative meeting on the same.
There's a bit of time constraint in terms of the amount of time that the people have had to be consulted. Number two is also an issue of awareness. A lot of people are not aware of the process, but most worrying is that they don't have platforms to be able to engage in the process. And this is why as SACWAD we have taken time to go around the country and provide as much platforms as possible to the media, to civil society organizations, to political parties, to trade unions, to the church, to senior citizens, to different government departments, so that as much as possible there is a stakeholder input.
Meanwhile, New Heritage Party Deputy Secretary General Edwin Zulu says police should ensure that the trend of wearing military regalia during demonstrations is completely phased out, as this encourages violence.
It's been a practice in the successive government whereby if a ruling party wants to participate or wants to demonstrate, they will just rise up early in the morning and go and demonstrate, and the police will not stop them. So I say we need to be fair, level-headed. We should all be given opportune time to demonstrate. There should be no time where the opposition is refused to demonstrate. Secondly, it's also very important that in the Public Order Act, there is no need for the police to ask us to write our names or the names of the speakers.
In a separate interview, Operation Young Vote Executive Director Gesh Nerenda has added his submissions.
So the police must be aware that this is just a notification. And for us, this can be done because this has been the bottleneck for a very long time. Police are taking advantage of them saying, no, you can't do this, you can do this, we don't have manpower, and so on and so forth. And when you go ahead, when they tell you they don't have manpower, suddenly manpower, comes from nowhere, huge manpower. So we want a public order act law that it will be very clear that the role of the police is indeed to just police those events. Yes,
present during the consultation were the media, political parties, trade unions, and civil society. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
The Parliamentary Committee on Legal Affairs, Rights and Governance has called for law reforms which will deter offenders from committing crimes if the fight against corruption in the country is to be won. In an interview, committee chairperson Clement Andeleki says the current sentences for the vice of corruption ranging as low as 2 years are not a deterrent for criminal-minded people would opt to be imprisoned and make away with a colossal sum of money. Meanwhile, Mr. Andeleki, who is also Katombora constituency Member of Parliament, says economic indicators in the country show that the current administration is on the right course to fully implement the manifesto by the year 2026. Zipporah Mushala once again brought us this report.
Has been said when it comes to the fight against corruption in the country, as various stakeholders have been giving their views on how this vice can be curbed. While the focus has been on ensuring that there is no sacred cow in the fight, the Parliamentary Committee on Legal Affairs, Rights and Governance feel that criminals are not deterred from practicing the vice, as the punishment ranges from as low as 1 year. In an interview, Committee Chairperson Clement Andeleki, who's also Katombora constituency Member of Parliament, says the status quo shows the need for urgent legal reforms.
An offender who is criminally minded would rather steal public funds and serve a 1 year sentence or a 2 year sentence. Unless the laws are reconciled, the Penal Code and the Anti-Corruption Commission Act must be synchronized, reconciled, and corruption must be made a very serious capital offense, so that persons who are entrusted to handle public funds must be restrained, and those who are willing or wishing to commit corruption must forever be deterred. As Member of Parliament for Katombola constituency, on behalf of my people and on behalf of the UPND government, we feel that there is need for serious law reforms in the area of the fight against corruption. Because this is the only way we can save public funds. We can talk, work, but if monies are being stolen, we will be working in vain.
Meanwhile, commenting on the performance of the current administration, the lawmaker says the United Party for National Development UPND administration is positioned to fully implement its manifesto by 2026.
And want to assure the people of Zambia that the New Dawn government will work, will look after their treasury, will ensure the best interest of the people is taken care. By 2030 or before, we must have attained the middle income status. We must start manufacturing. We have a challenge. All along, we are a consuming country under the previous government. We had to buy even a chitenge. We could not manufacture anything in this country. This is not good for development. Any country worth its salt like Zambia must be able to manufacture and export.
He adds that current economic reforms will help Zambia arrive towards its 2030 goal of becoming a prosperous middle-income country. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Chilanga constituency in Lusaka has come up with a strategic plan that will run from 2023 to 2026 to help the smooth implementation of the projects under the Constituency Development Fund. Chilanga Member of Parliament Sipo Lazo says development under the current administration is inevitable, assuring the constituencies of quicker implementation of projects such as roads and water. Meanwhile, Mr. Lazo hopes that the upcoming national census will also expose the vastness of some constituencies to pave way for possible delimitation in preparation for the general election in 2026.
Working on this document for the past 3 months or so, because we need input from all stakeholders, and also we're waiting for the census to exercise to be complete. But talking about Chilanga, Chilanga is a vast constituency. We have 12 wards, but in terms of area, it's extremely vast. So we can only pray also that the information that is going to come out of the census is going to help us and in the delimitation, and will be considered for delimitation in the next few years or so before 2026, because that will also help the constituency in terms of development, so that one part can receive the allocation of the 25.7 million kwacha and one part. This is when we're going to be able to see meaningful development also as a constituency. But so far, I can say so far so good. There are a number of issues that we've already, in terms of CDF allocations, like I mentioned earlier, we have approved to procure 2 graders for the constituency under the capital projects, because one of our issues, our main problems in the constituency is the issue to do with the roads, and we're soon getting into the rainy season, so we need to start quickly working on these roads. Another issue is the water problem, but for us to be able to sort this issue of the water problem out in the constituency is that in the next allocation we have decided to procure a rig so that we can be able to sink boreholes in the constituency.
The court has amended the charges brought against former Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary Dr. Kennedy Malama and 7 others in a criminal trial they are facing. Dr. Malama, who has been accused with 7 others of failing to comply, they laid down procedures when they awarded IVEC South Africa a Ministry of Health contract worth $13,750,000 United States dollars for the supply of 50 ambulances, has had the current 2 charges changed to 4 counts. All the accused persons have pleaded not guilty.
Following an order by a magistrate that the state amends the charges that former Minister of Health Permanent Secretary Kennedy Malama and 7 others are charged with failure to comply with laid-down procedure in relation to acquisition of 50 ambulances, the accused have taken plea once again to the allegations. In the last session, the 8 accused persons, through their lawyers, raised preliminary issues, among them arguing that the charge sheet, in view of Section 34(2)(b) of the Anti-Corruption Commission Act in its current form was defective, as it did not disclose sufficient details or particulars of the offence under the Act, hence requesting that the presiding magistrate under the Economic Financial Crimes Court, Stanford Ngobola, quash or dismiss the charges against them, as they were barred at law. However, in ruling, Magistrate Ngobola ordered for the amendment of the charge sheet instead of quashing it as the accused persons had requested. And the accused, who appeared before court Monday morning, denied once again the allegations leveled against them by the state. In this case, the former Minister of Health Permanent Secretary, Dr. Camnet Tv, is jointly charged with Dr. Francis Walia, 55, a diplomat, Dr. Mzaza Ntele, 48, a diplomat, Rebecca Njovu, a retiree, Dr. Maximilian Boyope, 51, a diplomat, and Wilson Lungu, a chief procurement officer at the Ministry of Mines. According to the new charge sheet, allegations in the first count are that Sikanto, between the 1st of January 2017 and the 31st of December 2021, he failed to comply with the law when he initiated the procurement process for the supply and delivery of 50 ambulances without following laid-down procedure as prescribed under Section 41 of the Public Procurement Act No. 12 of 2008, read together with Regulations 31 of Public Procurement Regulations of 2011. While in the second count, the state accuses the former Permanent Secretary, Dr. Malama, of failing to comply with the law when he terminated a Ministry of Health contract between the Ministry of Health and Seventa Management Services for the supply and delivery of 50 basic life support ambulances and training of personnel without following the laid-down procedure for contract termination. And lastly, in the fourth count, are accused of failing to comply with the law when they awarded a Ministry of Health contract to Ivenco South Africa Limited of a contract in the sum of $13,750,000 United States dollars for the supply and delivery of the said 50 ambulances. The accused are expected to appear before court soon for their commencement of trial, following their pleading of not guilty to the new charges. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Former Konkola Copper Mines Provisional Liquidator Milingo Lungu has submitted before the Constitutional Court documents for it to determine whether the move by the Director of Public Prosecutions to grant him immunity was within the Constitution. This is in a matter where Mr. Milingo Lungu was petitioned and his agents in the Constitutional Court over the rearrest on allegations that he bought a house using illegal gains when they entered into a pact to exempt him from persecution after he rendered the mining firm's account records and relinquished his position.
Debate on whether he was granted immunity by the state seemed not to be ending anytime soon, as the former Konkola Copper Mines Provisional Liquidator Milingo Lungu, in his latest submissions before the Constitutional Court, argues that the Director of Public Prosecution, Lillian Sioni, exercised her powers not to initiate criminal proceedings against him in relation to acts and or omissions arising from carrying out of his functions as provisional liquidator. Mr. Lungu, who has petitioned government and its agent before the Constitutional Court over his rearrest on allegation that he bought a house using illegal gains when they entered into an agreement to exempt him from prosecution after he rendered the mining firm's account records and relinquished his position, has argued that only the court has the power or authority to determine whether the DPP's action is within the Constitution. According to the affidavit in opposition of summons for an order to dismiss the state's cross-petition on determination of preliminary question of laws, Mr. Lungu states that the Attorney General cannot lodge a cross-petition as there is no relief that it can legally seek against him, as the promise of not to prosecute him was exercised by the DPP, who is not part of the current civil proceedings before the Constitutional Court. In this case, Mr. Milingo Lungu claimed to have negotiated for his freedom with President Hakainde Hichilema's principal private secretary, legal advisor, The Attorney General, Solicitor General, the Administrator General, and the Director of Public Prosecution said his rearrest had no legal effect owing to the discontinuance of his criminal proceedings by the latter, arguing that the Drug Enforcement Commission's decision to rearrest him for possessing a property suspected to be proceeds of crime was in breach of the agreement he signed with the state's agent, as it was unreasonable and an abuse of criminal proceedings to seize his property, arrest and charge and prosecute him for acts that KCM had not complained of. While the states wants the court to declare illegal the purported immunity dated 22nd March 2022 granted to Mr. Milungo-Lungu, as it is against public interest and an abuse of court process. We wait to see how this case unfolds. Meanwhile, the criminal proceedings that Mr. Lungu was currently facing before the Lusaka's Magistrate Court currently on stay until the Constitutional Court determines on this matter. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The Anti-Corruption Commission has arrested and charged Ndozo Lodge proprietor Clint Sichamba and co-directors and shareholders of Molozi Trading Limited, Eudora Nambela and David Sichaba for corruption involving over 781 million kwacha and more than 10 million United States dollars. ACC Public Relations Manager Timothy Mono says Clint Sichaba, his wife and his son David